Good afternoon, everyone. We have Will here today. Just get my stuff together. If you have any questions, let us know. Checking to confirm if we have any pre-submitted things. Where's the channel heading at? All right, we have no pre-submitted questions for today. There's something in chat there. All right, yeah, you're welcome, Jason. Please feel free to attend as many as you want. Without questions, we don't have much to talk about, so I don't have anything pre-submitted. We have some people joining though, so if there are any questions, as always, use chat, use Q&A, or just raise your hand and we'll unmute you. I will be here waiting for any questions that we might get from the group today. Here we go. I have a supplier feedback flow and I have been asked to add some historic data to it. However, in importing a spreadsheet, the create date goes to the date of the import. Is there a way for this date to be changed to the date I would like it to be? Okay. So Susan, so you are adding you have a form. On that form, you have like a file upload where someone is uploading a spreadsheet of some kind?
The main flow is manually inserted, so a form goes out to our suppliers, they fill it in,
Okay.
it gets saved in the flow, but it also gets sent to our commercial department to add like the feedback back to the supplier and then to our operational department.
Okay.
So each one is obviously, it comes up with the date it was created, etc. But because they want some historic data added, and the historic data, I created a new flow where it goes onto a worksheet. It's where I upload a spreadsheet. But rather than the date on the spreadsheet of when it was created, it comes up as if it's just been created.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's a way to get around that.
What's the data you so there's some data type you're using to save this date into, right?
Well, it's just the flow. It originally comes up with the flow date, doesn't it? Whenever the flow worked, it comes up with a created by date. On the form, there is a column which has a date in it, but that will go to a separate column, whereas I want it to feed into the existing data so that it has the correct date. I might not be explaining myself very well.
Let's see. Okay, so
would it be easier if I showed you on my?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've gotten a little bit. We're a little cautious about screen share since these get
Yeah,
recorded. So, but like, I understand that. Like, let's assume if I had an entity here, like, let's say I created a like let's say I have like an entity. I'll just call this thing entity test one, and I'll give it a custom property. Just create this. Now, normally when I create this thing in a flow, let's assume if I build a flow here, let's assume I have a bunch of forms and other processes ahead of time. But what I do is I come down to the user, find types, and I find my entity that I created, entity test one, and I drag over a create step here. Now, when I create this thing under item to create, I can click build data and I can get access to all the properties, one of which is going to be the created on date. And now I can set this to whatever value I want. So I can override the created on date if I need to when the flow is running.
Ah, right.
Otherwise, it might take a default date. If you don't put anything, it'll probably take current date time as the value.
Ah, now that I didn't realize that. So yeah, I can certainly give that one a go.
Yeah, of course, I'm just guessing a bit here on your behalf, but and let's maybe if for some reason you don't have it, you might have to do something where you like use like a selective update type action. So you can see here, like maybe later on in the flow, I need to use a selective update step, at which point I might need to set the created on date to some new value if it gets set automatically by the process for some reason. You might have to create the data and then quickly or sort of immediately update the data. Um, um,
Okay, not sure
yeah.
how that would work. While you're on that one, I know I have got a current flow that I'm working on, and you know how you've put the create one, but
hmm
if you're adding in different parts of the flows, you're adding more data. What
hmm
should I be using? Should it be the edit or which one do you use when you want to add more?
Yeah, so edit is good, but if you leave anything empty, it will get cleared out. So the nice thing about a selective update step is it only replaces the values that you've set. So you're going to give it, even though it's a little oddly laid out, if you're going to give it the ID of some object, and then you're going to leave everything alone, say, but just create it on date. And then you could pass in some values, maybe current date time, just to show an example. This leaves alone all of the other properties
Right,
that you might need. And it shows you your custom properties here at the top, along with the name and the description of that particular thing. So selective update's really common. There's also a pattern where you might fetch, if say there's a lot of properties and you don't want to map them all, what you might do is something like this, where you might, entity tests, is that what I just created? Yeah, 1113. You might fetch something, like fetch, the record you're going to deal with, and you're going to fetch it, sorry. And then what you might do is like a kind of this is a little strange for people at first, but it works really well. You might use like a save entity step and a create data step in concert. And the idea here is I'm gonna fetch. I'm gonna fetch like a record. Let's assume I have it by its ID. I fetch one. That's what this fetch entity step is doing. It's like a query step. I can use it to return data to the flow. And then I wanted to override like I created a property on it called string, or let's just use date, since we're talking about date. So I'll create a thing here called new date, and then I'll go ahead and select a date time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of trick the flow engine into setting the value here. So I'm going to use a constant date here, but under the outputs, I'm going to change this from rename to change value. And change value is going to give me another picker. And what I can do is I can find the object I care about. This is entity result. That's the default name of the fetch entity step. And I can see if I look to the right here, it's ENT test one. And I can come here and I can find created on date, pick it. And then what happens is when the workflow engine hits this step, it basically does a swap and replace. It's going to take this value and update this property with that value. Because then what I can do is I can find ENT test one, and then I can just pass the whole object into a save statement here. And yet these steps working together where I fetch it, I do change value on one property and then pass the whole object in. This is when I'm doing maybe an operation with a lot of properties. This is a more design time expedient way for me to do a bunch of updates. And anything, and what happens here, unlike the edit step where we said if I leave these ignore, they will get nulled out. None of the properties that I don't touch get changed at all. I'm only touching the properties I define on this create data step.
Right.
And this is a very common pattern to see designers use in our tool.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think I probably need to use that. Thanks very much for that. Great.
And another, yeah, you bet. Just add one little additional thing there. There's also a step that a lot of people like to use called a mapping step, and the mapping step lets them replace this create data step. And then what they do is, if on the mapping step, it actually gives you all the data that's in the flow already, and lets you select from it. So here you might say build data, and then create it on date, make it some current date time or something. I like this one better. It's easier to see the properties I'm changing. This one gives you a little bit more information for free, but
Right.
it's kind of I think a dealer's choice there, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, that's exhausts our current question queue. So if you have anything, please let me know. And go ahead, Alex. I can't share your screen, but we can talk through what you might have, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. Good morning,
Hey.
Afternoon. The problem is the following. I have a case entity, and one of the data elements of that case entity is a list of database entities. Okay. When I try to, and sorry, I have a form that allows me to select from the list of database entities the ones that I want to save in the case.
Okay.
When I do a create entity, those elements, even though they are mapped, I do when I do the, how do you call this thing, with a database editor, I do a select, and I don't see, sorry, I see every other column in the case, but not the one that shows the database entities that should have been saved. Am I, I'm using a normal create case entity step, but I'm not sure I'm doing something wrong there.
So you have a case that has a simple database structure inside of it, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. And one.
Let me just create one. I'm gonna create a data structure here. And let me create a case here. And this would be a list of the child types. And then here I'll find my thing. So there's child type is a list.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so now I could create a flow, theoretically, that I could find my create step. It's user defined case entity, parent case one, create. Give it, do build data, and just set some of these other values here. And then list of child item is an array here. So you're saying now when you create your case, are you passing in the list of data here?
Correct, yes.
And it never gets saved?
Yep.
Okay,
at
so
least,
let's just
sorry,
create a. Go ahead.
maybe I should say that I am running. Let me see the name of this thing that I'm using. Just 1 second, okay? Where did it go? Here. It is the database query tool that comes with decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I.
Ah, I see. And you're expecting to see the child list inside of the parent?
I expect to see something, but
I
there's
see.
nothing. So now I'm
Yeah,
wondering what the problem is the query editor.
it's not. It's just it's a sort of it's a maybe confusing piece about how we save the data type. Let's see here. 1-to-1, yeah, 1-to-many. Let's see if our screenshot is helpful here. I've asked the doc team to write on this a bit. So what happens is we and I'll show you this in the query editor in just a minute. When you have a 1-to-many relationship, the ID of the parent is saved into the child. When you do a 1-to-1, the ID of the child is saved into the parent. That's just how our ORM keeps that that relationship. I don't know what this screenshot is. In a 1-to-many, a single record is used across multiple records. This can be used many-to-many.
Actually, a many-to-many, because that list could be in many cases, right?
Well, you can't do many-to-many in our tool directly. You'd have to manage that completely separately, which we could talk about here just a moment.
Intermediate table.
Yeah, you'd have to do all of that manually. You couldn't use our ORM data for that at all. So if it's many-to-many, then we are definitely talking about something different here. But really quickly, if I could, like, let me run my flow. Let me just create some data really quick. Okay. And I'm gonna build a list. Right, and I'll add just a couple items here. All right, and then I'm gonna pass child list in here to the list of child type. This should all be pretty straightforward. Right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and debug and run. Boom, that runs. So let me duplicate my tab and let me go to the query editor here. Now, if I come here and I search for parent, there's my parent case, right? And I can, I can insert the table name and I can say select star from, boom. And it'll give me all the properties and none of which are gonna be that child type property at all. But what I wanna do is if I search for child lowercase, there you go, there's child type. And I'll do the same thing. And I will insert table name. I will say select star from. Now I run this, I should see those 3 records, and you'll see a property in here named underscore parent case ID. And so that's the ID of that parent case. So I could join those things together. As parent, and I'll say on select star as parent. Sorry. Let me go ahead. I'm gonna inner join child type as child on parent dot ID or extension ID equals child dot underscore parent case 1. Think. Here we go. And now then I could have, the case ID, I guess, case ID, comma, str1 child. I think I put that on both. So child.str1, comma, and that should show me, yeah, now I can see my case ID and I can see then those 3 things I created. So your data is probably it's probably not clear in the query editor that you've got this dependent table that is not in the table at all. They're kind of being managed or connected by the ORM itself.
Sorry, Two things. What was the name in the parent that you gave to the list of children?
I gave it its name was child type list. Child list of the list
Okay,
of the child type. That's the property name I gave it.
okay. So can you go back to the query for a sec?
Mm-hmm.
You run the first one again, and the list doesn't even appear. In
Mm-hmm.
mine,
Correct.
in mine, the field appears, but it's empty. Interesting.
That now we
Maybe,
don't delete. One of the things to note is as you add and create columns, we don't delete columns that you might have created at
mm,
one point. So it could just be that you created it at some point.
okay, 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 okay. So, all right, but now what happens when I have multiple cases
Mm-hmm.
in my sorry, if you run this again, sorry, your flow again and create a new case with this, maybe even the same list of children, what would happen then? How it will be resolved? You see what I'm saying? If you go to the first tab where you have your flow and rerun that flow, that will create a new case, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
What would happen with that case? Where will the mapping of cases to children be kept?
Well, let's assume I ran this flow again with no changes, right? I should then get what's wrong with this? Cannot save parent case. Oh, that's right. This error that we started getting. I need to submit that. This is something recent. Just a moment. I just hit an issue. I'm gonna do this. Okay. Now, if I were to come back and run my statement, I'm gonna have, actually, let's just do child type, right? I have 5 records, but if I did a distinct on parent case, I only have 2 unique IDs in this table. So
Correct.
these can all point at different cases, and they could this parent case doesn't even have to be the same case type if it wants to be used across different types of cases. This thing can link it, so this table can be linked to multiple parent tables just through the primary key relationship. So this being the primary key of the
Mhm,
object whose name is I guess mentioned here.
mhm. However, did this work because you put in the list of children different names from what you had in the first case?
No, that was so there's an issue in the build I'm running where because I have these set as constant right now, this is like an issue we have to get fixed. This is some regression that we've done inadvertently. Because these are a constant, it's trying to save them with the same ID into this table when it shouldn't be.
Mm,
This is more specific to some issue, like a newly created issue of some sort, not um, the names of these things don't matter at all. It's the IDs that
yeah, yeah,
matter.
yeah. Okay, so effectively, just to summarize, the link information or the relationship is kept in the child table, not in the parent in this
For
case.
one to many, but in a one to one, like if child type wasn't a list but a single, then
Mhm.
its ID would be in the parent. You would see its information in the query editor in line with the parent object. Yes.
But because this is a one to many, uh, it is kept in the child's table, which makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Okay.
And you can't use any. You have to completely handle many to many relationships yourself. Um, you can't do them inside of the tool itself. Like
Mhm.
you can use like you could save like like a property call like child ID or parent ID manually, and then have those fetch from or write to some sort of reference table or third table. But you
Mm,
can't, there's no way for you to design a many-to-many relationship in the data structure designer today.
got it. But it's interesting because unless I'm missing something, this is truly a many-to-many. Because many cases, sorry, one case could have many children, okay? Or one child could be in many cases. So that's a many-to-many.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So
Then
I have
yeah.
this
Sorry.
one is working because the column in string one is different. The uniqueness of parent case one and string one
Mm-hmm.
is guaranteed here. But if you were to have, no, sorry, I don't know. Okay, I'll have to play with this, but I think I have a good pointer. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you bet.
Sorry, and the document that you pointed out was that data structure relationships. Is that
I'm sorry. Ask that question again, Alex?
yeah, the document that you pointed out is the one in the fourth tab, data structure relationships, that one, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Bet.
you. I'll do my homework now.
Yeah, I'm not sure this doc is good enough for what we need it for. But yeah, maybe it might help.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, mine is definitely a many-to-many because, in your example, many customers, many products. Mine is
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Okay. Okay, perfect.
Then what you might be needing to do is have a list of IDs, right? And you
Mhm.
just save that ID list into your case for the data structures that are meaningful,
Yes,
not the objects themselves. And then a nice thing that you can do to try to, there's a concept called a data extension that can maybe make this a bit easier. But here, in fact, let's just use docs. And like you can use a data extension to give you some of that data for free. You could do the fetch and the return of the actual child types. There is a this concept called a data extension, and what it lets you do is define output data on like a special type of flow behavior. You can see here, like a custom created on date format, and then what you can get, you kind of do the fetches, and you sort of get take your list of IDs, and then you build them, fetch them, and get them turn into a list. And then I don't know if this is what this is going to show, but basically that like you can get the same view because like right now with the data type that you've created, you could just expand the data type and get the list of child objects, right? And this data extension concept gives you the ability to do that like kind of virtually. So it just makes it easier when you're dealing with this case object and flows. You can always have available to you that that the have the sort of mapping editor do the work of aggregating the results from the child table for you.
I'll have to read on that a little bit more then. I don't think I understood what you said, but
Here, I can
that's
show it
my.
to you really quick. Like, let's assume I want to add some custom properties. Let's assume I'll do this really quick. Let's assume I'm going to edit my case data type, right? And I'm going to delete the child type list, right?
Mhm.
Right. And then let's assume I was going to try to I was fetching that case to be used later. Oops. So I'd come here and I'd find the parent case, right? There's parent case. And then if I were to debug this, I would see the results. And if I looked at the debugger and I inspected the results, I wouldn't have my type here. it's not available to me. I just have that one custom property I added.
Mhm.
And so, and I know I can't do that because I have a many-to-many relationship, right? But if I come to system designers, lookup lists and constants, there's a thing here called a data extension. I'm going to create a data extension, and I'm going to call add or include child type data from parent case. It's a terrible name.
¿Ahora puedes atender?
I'm sorry.
No.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to let the workflow engine know what I'm supposed to be doing. So on the start step, I'm going to select my parent case type. Name it parent case, and I'll search for parent. There's parent case 1. Great. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume I've saved those IDs, right? Like let's just assume I did. On the output, I'm going to output the child type list, right? And I'm going to search for child. And then I'm going to select his list. And I'm just going to force a fetch. So I'm going to come here and do child. There's child type, right? And fetch criteria. Okay, it's not going to give me that. I'm going to run a quick query step here. Just a moment. That's unfortunate.
But some records with a 222.
Yeah. Raw SQL step. Let me just go. Do I show my query? I don't. That's why we make things difficult. Select star from. Let me find the child type table. No. Come back here and other. And we're going to search for child. Right, there's child type, and we're gonna insert table name, and I'm gonna copy the table name, come back here, select star from, boom, where, and I'm gonna say what? Oh, good grief. Where underscore parent case 1. Equals, and then I can open up parent case and I can pass in extension ID. Now this should run. And then what I'm going to do is just do a list mapping step really quick. Blah, blah, blah. My output type is child. And then my inputs will be my raw SQL step, which I'll set to return data. And I will use data rows. Great. So input type here is now result. Great. And now inside of here, I have item mapping editor. I can do build data, and I'm just going to do just the string. So I think it's field 2 text is probably what it is. Boom, boom, boom. And then this gets its value from my step, which would be outputs. So this step, I specified parent case as the input. I'm going to query the data I need from the database. And I'm just doing a type conversion here. You would want to probably just I would do that all in, I would make the raw SQL step map the type I care about instead of doing a list mapping step, but that's something bigger than this particular example. Now, if I come back and I run this again, and I look at my output data, I should see, no, all right, hold on. Let's save this and come back. Hold on, what am I missing? Data Explorer, any results first? Child type list should show. Why is it not showing? Am I getting an error? Come on, come on, what's wrong? Let's go with the logs. is this not working? Parent case, I said the right type, right? Parent case 1.
What was it?
What's this thing, right? Parent case 1.
When you have to put the extension type name that you created.
No, maybe. Do I have to name it something specific? Something stupid. Add data extension. Enter account. Select account. I can name it whatever I want. Parent case is my input. Child type list. Let me rename it slightly different. Child type list 111. Okay, save this. Come back. And back into my flow here. Let me see. Can I map? Why is this being a pain for me? Here's results. Create a string. And select from flow. Entity results. There. All child type list 111. That's there now. Let's see if it shows in the debugger or not. Debug, run. That's fine. Doesn't show in the debugger. Oh, I guess it shows only when I use it. So here, if I did select from flow, child type, and I could do first child type list first, right? Boom. And then I could run this. I didn't know that it didn't show in the debugger. What's wrong with this? Okay. Raw SQL step. No result path defined for outcome failed. So there's an error here. What's wrong? Oh, I don't have single ticks. This is a terrible example, Alex. I'm sorry. We can.
Don't worry.
There we
Don't
go.
worry.
Boom, boom, boom. Now I can see that I have that property available to me. So ultimately what I did is I created effectively like a virtual property on my parent case. The data type of which is the output data of this data extension flow. So I bind it to the data type by making the input type match the type I want to add it to. And then any output types here show up as properties. And then I just do whatever data fetching I need to do here so that I can find it. And if I were to come here and use Data Explorer, you can now see I have a type here called all child list, which is the type of property I created. And now I can let the workflow engine. So let's assume you were going to need to do a lot of, you were wanting to have a many-to-many relationship and return and interact with a lot of data. Then that were in different tables, you could use these data extensions to kind of make all of that available as if it were a proper property. The only thing you don't get is like when you create it, this won't exist on the create parent case step, right? Child type 111 won't show up here. It's only an output option. It's like a virtual output property.
Got it. I think I got it. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. I'll have to rewatch the video, but yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions today?
A variation. Sorry, if there's no other people who want to ask questions, I really don't want to monopolize the.
No, please. No other questions currently. Go ahead.
Okay. If the data structure were one in which the parent is referencing a list of entities of its same type, right? So imagine that these are just database entities. Let's forget
Okay.
about case. Okay?
Mhm.
Very simple database entity, and it's say a list of applications. Okay,
Okay.
and these applications have one attribute, which is a list of applications, and let's say that to which they can connect. Okay. This is now a one-to-many proper relationship. So the field is a list of objects of its own type. Would that be saved as such in the database?
Say that for me one more time. I'm sorry.
Okay. So imagine that I have a database entity that is simply an application, right?
Okay.
And one of the attributes or fields in this application database in one of the columns is actually a list of applications to which the record can connect to.
Okay.
Okay. So how would I, when I create that database entity, would it save it properly as a, as a list of IDs of the type I specified? Does that make sense what I'm saying now?
There's no difference between a case and a database structure for that, how that will save the data, right?
Now this is proper.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like you're creating your own database tables?
It is, yeah. Well, this is a database I'm creating using decisions. I created the table using decisions.
Okay.
This database table is called applications, and one of the columns is called connected applications, which is a list of applications as well. So it's a single linked list, effectively.
Okay.
Except that the linkage is stored as an array of IDs. That's the way I assume it is stored in decisions in that field.
Yeah, if then that is serial. We create a serialized column on the data type, and then store that string list in there. So it's not available at the. If you wanted to write queries to join these things together, you wouldn't be able to.
No. But just a list of, I should be able to see, right?
You would see the serialized. If you're looking in the query editor, you would see the serialized. You just see serialized blob data. If you were looking in the flow designer, yes, you could see the integer list would come out for you.
Okay.
So you letting decisions manage lists of properties for you. You do lose some capabilities there from like a query standpoint. Your ability to craft queries.
Yeah, which is fine. I really don't want to use a query editor. I just wanted to see that the record had the information that I stored in it, and
it would
showing it.
Yeah, because it's an integer is not a separate data type for us, like a separate like proper object. So it saves its data into that column for you. It just serializes it as a blob.
This is not an integer. This is a list of applications. Okay. An application has a list of applications as a field.
Oh, like a recursive design?
Yeah.
That's not, you can probably do that, but that's not advised. That's going to create some problems for you. It would still show in the same way, I think here. Actually, I don't know what that would do. I wouldn't do that. You probably could get it to work, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
If you have to create a tree of objects, that's the only way you do it in a database.
Yeah, I mean, you can create recursively designed data types, but it can be very fragile. I would just create a reference table where all these things are kept at. and then you can just use the ID of the thing to look up the IDs of the things you care about in that other table, and then just return them into the flow as you need them.
Okay.
That'd be a safer.
That's
It's more
a way
work,
of
but it'd be a safer
communicating.
solution.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
I'll have to leave the session now. Thank you so much.
You bet, Alex. Happy to help. I think that's all of our questions for today. Last call, so to speak. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you same time tomorrow.